like the crazy people. And the same, I was arrested in the pajama, and I was for 9 months until my brother brought me some robes. I couldn't meet anybody. I wear all of these, and they give us one blanket. I cover myself, and I'm shaking and shivering. And that's the same for my comrades. I swear by God, one year we even didn't get coffee or tea. As a piece of bread, there's no bread. For 4 months, 2 months, I lost 18 kilograms. New York Times magazines put one of the guards showed me, Barzan Takriti. Now his ribs are showing in the prison, and he is. We ask the prosecutors to visit the areas so that they present reports so that we can deal with the situation. So that after 3 years now, there's air conditioning, there's heating. This is another thing. I'm just saying this out of fairness. We got the point. So my question is, he says there is a person that came and visited them, and he was sent by the president that had a number of people. Who was that person?
إذا سيد أنا ما لي شغلة بإذا المحكمة تنشدني على هذا السؤال إيش قد تطلبون شهود إيش قد تريد أجيب لك شهود
I can bring witnesses. I don't know who he was.
لأنه إحنا مو كنا عدمنا
تعرف الاسم؟
ما طلعوا
نعم تعرف اسم هذا.
Do you know the name of that person?
واضح.
No, but they told us there was an involved. I ask you with your conscience. You are a man now, and you are dedicated to have a conscience. Did you see Barzan Takriti in any of the areas? He answered. He said, no, I didn't see him. Excellent. There's no need for the question. How did he mention that Barzan Takriti is responsible for the force in the jail? He said he heard. You know that the hearsay is not admissible. The other thing, how did he know he was in the intelligence? Hashim Qadir told him. Can he describe the building and where it was? He said he entered in the garage. Can he describe the garage? The building that you were in, can you describe it? I lived there about 70 days. The floor, they had red cells. You can't control your eyes. Everything, the light, the projectors are very strong. The floor above, there was no roof. I saw that. That's what I remember. When we went to Abu Ghraib, I could remove the blindfold a little bit, and I could see the fence and so on. Yes. Your Honor, through you I'll talk to the witness. We now, before you, if you come down to our cells, you see that the lights are red.
You're watching the trial of Saddam Hussein and 7 co-defendants in Baghdad. We've been watching Barzan Takriti, Saddam's half-brother, just in the last 10 minutes or so. He's been complaining to the court about the conditions that he and other defendants have been kept in by the Americans in the lead-up to this trial, complaining that he wasn't given air conditioning or heating during the winter and summer months in his incarceration. Obviously trying still to draw a parallel between treatment of how the American-led occupation had been treating him and how the treatment of the witnesses we'd been hearing earlier under Saddam, that has been seen as some strategy of the defence here. This is the third day of the third session of the trial. A little earlier we heard witnesses talking about their treatment at the hands of the co-defendants, and for the first time we heard a defendant, and it was Bazan al-Takriti, directly named by one of the witnesses in his links to what happened in Dujal 23 years ago. 148 men were killed in an apparent retaliation to an attempted assassination on Saddam Hussein. The big news, though, from today's trial proceedings so far is the fact that Saddam Hussein himself is sitting out this latest round of testimony in the trial. Judges deciding to go on without the deposed Iraqi president. That's after he delayed proceedings for about 4 hours on Wednesday by refusing to actually appear in the court. Well, the first witness of the day, meanwhile, said that he was tortured by Iraqi officials in 1982. He said Saddam's half-brother and the co-defendant was present.
Stand against the wall and stand on one leg, 1 foot only. Somebody said, if I tell you to shoot them, then shoot them. They were trying to horrify us. Anybody who put his leg down, scream at him to put your leg up. Until they got us into the building. Somebody took me, put me in a cell who had red walls all over, with big projectile lights on me, which annoyed me so much. I was handcuffed. He threw me there and he left me alone. I was very thirsty. I wanted to drink water, but the water was too hot to drink. It was more like boiling. I stayed in that cell for 2 days.
Last of several witnesses, 8 witnesses giving evidence to the court about their treatment at the hands of some of the co-defendants. As you notice there, the court kept that man's identity hidden for security reasons. We will, of course, continue to cover this story. We'll be going live to Baghdad for an update and some analysis a little bit later in the show.
Well, in about 1.5 hours, U.S. President George W. Bush will deliver the second in a new series of speeches aimed at countering criticism of the war in Iraq. Elaine Quijano joins us now with a preview. Elaine, what can we expect from President Bush's speech today?
Well, good morning, Malika. Last week, President Bush focused on the issue of Iraq's security. This week, we are told by White House officials the president will focus on Iraq's economy as well as infrastructure. Specifically, that includes things like rebuilding schools and hospitals and also getting electricity, power, and water systems back up and running. Now, just a short time from now, as you mentioned, Mr. Bush will deliver his speech here in Washington. It will be before the Council on Foreign Relations. Expect President Bush to lay out very specific examples of progress in Iraqi cities like Mosul and Najaf. And once again, though, the president is expected to say that the United States has had to adapt its approach. This time, of course, he'll be talking about the Iraqi reconstruction effort and the economy. Now, as you mentioned, this speech is just the latest in a series of speeches that the president will give before Iraq's parliamentary elections next week. The goal, really, is to try to convince Americans that the administration does have a strategy for winning in Iraq and that that strategy is working. Now, yesterday, President Bush was asked about criticism this week by a member of the opposition party, Democrat Howard Dean, who said essentially the idea that the United States would win in Iraq is just plain wrong. Here's how President Bush responded to that criticism.
And of course there'll be some pessimists and some people playing politics with the issue. But by far the vast majority of people in this country stand squarely with the men and women who wear the nation's uniform.
At the same time, though, we can expect President Bush today to invoke the name of another Democrat, Senator Joe Lieberman, essentially what the administration and Senator Lieberman have in common is that they both believe it would be wrong for the United States to withdraw early from Iraq, that to do so immediately would be a mistake. So look for President Bush to talk about that as well. And finally, White House officials say next week, President Bush on Monday, in fact, will talk about Iraq once again. That time he will focus, we are told, on the political progress that the administration says is taking place there. Malika?
Elaine Quijano, thanks very much. And of course, we will bring you that speech from President Bush when it takes place in about an hour and a half from now.
For the moment, though, let's return to the trial of Saddam Hussein. Our senior international correspondent, Nick Robertson, has been monitoring events in Baghdad. He joins us now live. Nick, first of all, Saddam Hussein has not appeared today, has he?
He hasn't, but the judge has said that he will be kept informed of whatever happens in the courtroom, and the proceedings have gone ahead without him. The sort of tussle between Saddam Hussein and the chief judge over who really has the power to hold up proceedings or push it forward. The judge coming out clearly ahead, getting the court up and running again today, Andrew.